This is part 2 of my Knights of the Damned review. If you haven't seen part 1 already, but what are you even doing here, you silly? Just go watch it. It's linked down below. Just go watch it. Yeah. Anyway, where were we? Yes, I remember now. After another $500 worth of stock footage is wasted, we cut to the Knights talking about things we've already heard before.
What do you think about these rumors of furious beasts?
There's much talk of strange things stalking the shadows.
We've been to the farthest reaches of the kingdom. We haven't seen anything. We've been to the farthest reaches of the kingdom. We haven't seen anything.
Come on, these are just stories of the dead. Utter nonsense. We shouldn't waste our time discussing it.
Now the next scene is a bit weird. You remember this guy? Yeah, him. His name is Bryce, and outside of pissing off the Knights, starting trouble for no reason, and generally acting like his soul's been sucked clean out of his body, there really isn't much to his character, yet this scene that you're looking at is dedicated entirely to this Kingdom Come NPC. Also, Bryce is such a weak name for someone as bold, strong, and resplendent as a warrior such as him. And since this is his costume for this movie and the sequel, we'll give him the name Spear Guy. Basically, Spear Guy, knowing of the coming zombie apocalypse, takes his love interest hunting in the woods to teach her basic survival skills. These two have some of the most compelling dialogue that even make the tight socks of Shakespeare quiver, and a romance so real that you can almost tell human beings are acting in this scene.
I'm the village's best hunter, maybe the land's.
From what I hear, you were bested by a woman at the tavern.
There was 4 of them.
Ooh! Now this gets interesting.
Anyway, this is why we're here. To learn how to hunt, how to kill.
In fact, their love is so moving that the very light itself reflects the somber lows and the bright highs. However, after a long makeout session, they encounter a bear in the woods.
That's big.
Yeah, boy.
What are you gonna do about it?
Not me. You.
Spear Guy's love interest sneaks up to the bear like a Scooby-Doo character, and much like a Hanna-Barbera cartoon, trouble often lurks close behind. And yeah, she gets eaten. Spear Guy emotes, kind of, and the rest of the scene accomplished absolutely nothing. Oh boy. As night falls and the zombies begin to spawn in the wilderness, the Knights talk some more. Oh my god. God, please, let something happen. However, Thomas's wound is acting up, but this isn't really addressed. It's just sort of played for laughs, and that's that. Sir Darius dreams of his love, and that's all the development you're going to get on their relationship in this movie. They got any shared interests? Any fond memories together? No? Oh, okay. The next morning, Thomas, in a trance, attacks Sir Darius, and while they manage to snap him out of the spell, this should be the first major sign Chad Thomas, the poet, isn't doing too hot. But the Knights don't care, and move on toward the nearby village, where dead bodies spawned in the middle of the road. In an attempt to keep the horses safe, they decide to travel on foot to check the village. As they search the town for signs of life amongst ye old historical information signs, paved roads, and well-kept flower gardens, it seems like, between a minute of footage of showing signs of life, that no one is around. Inevitably, this leads to an action sequence, which boils down to them running around in circles, chopping the shit out of everything they see like Lancelot in Monty Python. We'll get into why the action really doesn't work in this scene a little later here, and yeah. However, the zombies are too much for our heroes, and so they escape into the nearby forest. As Thomas is progressively doing worse, and the zombies are still aggroed to them, they meet with the Katori women, who've been driven away from their original quest by the looming zombie apocalypse. This leads us into the start of yet another action sequence. Wait, this isn't the start of another action sequence? I thought, they'd keep up the momentum. Oh, they're just going to keep talking about things we already knew. Okay. Hey, there we go. Yeah, there's the action sequence. And it just sort of happens. It just sort of happens. Back at the castle, the prince is about to flee while it's revealed they've been keeping dragon eggs in the dungeon.
Take that to the dungeon. Ensure it's locked away with the others. Now! Wait for me by the west gates!
Why does the... Ooh! Have the dragon? I guess we'll never know. Here the prince explains his master plan to the audience.
This kingdom will be overrun with a bigger army than anyone has ever seen before, more powerful and more destructive, so that all 12 kingdoms will fall at my feet, and Father will see that I destroyed an entire army of his and get nothing but a royal finger wag. I will rule this kingdom, and I will rule every kingdom!
Okay. Let me get this right. His plan from the start was he's going to leave the princess to rot while riding away to safety. Then he plans on showing his father he built a stronger and bigger army than his to prove how much more capable and powerful he is at ruling the kingdom. And then have the aforementioned undead necromancer army, made entirely of his nation's subjects, march on the kingdom and all the neighboring kingdoms. Also, he wants to diddle her?
You think? I don't know. When I wanted you to play with me,
I'm your sister, Fabian.
The fuck? Can he control the zombies? Or if he's in contact with the main necromancer guy, who I assume doesn't want the Fury to hurt him, why would he need to flee the castle? Why doesn't he just kill the princess if the entire place is going to be overrun by thousands of zombies? Why? What part of this plan makes any sort of sense? None of... Oh my god, his plan's so stupid. I'm having trouble dealing with this. Oh my god, my fucking systems are shutting. Help me. Please help me. As the last of the Katori women arrive with Sir Darius, Sir Swole, and Sir Chad Thomas at the castle, the guards don't seem to want to let them inside. Okay.
I'm sorry.
What?
I'm sorry.
What? What just happened?
You okay? In much pain?
Ask again and I'll show you much pain.
Fair enough.
5 minutes later.
I'm sorry.
You were like a brother to me, Thomas, until, of course, you became a liability. Sir Darius and Swole fight off the zombies on their own with more slow-mo than a Zack Snyder film, while Sir Darius whips out his magic dagger of cleaning. More CG blood is spilt, zombie Chad Thomas gets sliced on his stomach, and finally the group is led inside by this dude who certainly won't betray them in the future. There they meet the princess and find out a huge army of Fury are surrounding the castle.
Your clones are very impressive. You must be very proud.
They later discover the reason the dragon attacked the castle in the first place was because the prince had stolen its eggs and hidden them in the dungeon. Sir Darius leaves with a suspicious guard to go get the eggs. I'm not sure why the prince didn't grab all of them on the way out, but whatever. While the rest of the group prepares to defend the castle. After passing ye old wiring fixture into the dungeon, the guard, who is not working with the bad guy, takes one of the few eggs in the dungeon and tells Sir Darius it's the only one. I mean, at least dragons lay eggs in this movie. On their way to regroup with the others, the guard, reasonably enough, asks what the plan is.
What do you plan to do?
It's the greatest non-answer I've ever heard.
Reasonably enough, they're wanting to get out of Dodge, and so they're about to go get the horses when...
Fury! Yeah, no shit.
So having to rethink their plan amidst the ye old exterior lamps of illumination, Sir Darius lets Sir Swole take the princess underground through some tunnels, while he and the Katori woman fight off the army to distract them. Or, that's the plan, at least I think. I'm not sure, they don't really tell us. We're never really given a full idea of what Sir Darius's plan is. He just says he'll stay and fight, armors up, and then runs head first into the army with no cover or no defensive structures in place. Bro, this ain't Skyrim. You've got iron armor and you're level 6, you're not that cool. And of course, the guard, who is completely not evil, betrays them. And look at the vast schisms of depth you've added to the story for including this betrayal. It's truly remarkable storytelling. Sir Darius goes into battle and does his fight, gets his butt handed to him until the dragon shows up earlier in the day. Wait, what? No, wait, it's at night? Oh. Anyway, yeah, the dragon gets the eggs. Enraged, the dragon twitches through the sky, burning the land in all of the fury. Yep. Since this is the last action sequence, I think now is a good time to talk about the action in this movie. Ben Lloyd Holmes was one of the head writers, and since that's the case, I think his input on what he intended the story to be in the end stands a bit higher than some of the other actors, seeing as no one can quite agree on what the film's focus should be on. Ben Lloyd Holmes describes the movie as...
And it's kind of a good old-fashioned tale. I don't know if you've seen The Princess Bride, like those sort of good old swashbuckling movies. It's kind of one of those. So, yeah, it's a good old-fashioned movie. It's set in a very modern way.
I don't remember where I heard it before. Someone once said that fight scenes are like musical numbers. Much in the same way a song in a musical describes a changing mindset, emotion, or event happening to a character, a fight scene acts in a similar way. Each fight scene should be important in developing the characters, furthering the story, or work as a means to challenge the main heroes, either between one another or with whatever the main conflict is centered on. Ben Holmes says it's a good old swashbuckling type movie, like The Princess Bride, but that couldn't be farther from the truth of it. The sword fights in The Princess Bride act as character-building moments where Wesley discovers important details about major characters in the story or to build tension as he saves his love from danger. Like in a musical, the fight scenes in The Princess Bride act as a vessel for the story to be further developed and in the process allow us, the audience, to grow attached to the characters. As people grow to like the characters, suspense is created when they're put into peril or suffer great defeats. There's very little good old swashbuckling in Knights of the Damned. It's almost always just... Good fights are like self-contained narratives, like many musical numbers, with a beginning problem which is elaborated and expanded on before reaching a conclusion. Many of the fights in Knights of the Damned have no structure or reason to them, and half of it is them beating the tar out of the mostly unarmed zombies. It's flashy, it's quick, but in the end, it's all empty. Very little comes out of the fights. Not much character is conveyed, no new developments made, and so on. If we look at the final battle, for example, the inclusion of a well-formed plan would have established this: that Sir Richard is good at leading, is brave and caring, smart and crafty as he and another person build a well-formed defense with what little resources they have. Because if it was all properly established and we actually cared for the characters, it would have created a very suspenseful conclusion. It doesn't help that the Fury are also incredibly overpowered, able to take dozens of blows, stabs, or slices while still being able to fight. I really think adding a weakness to the Fury would have helped make these scenes more dynamic, interesting, and tense. For instance, in The Walking Dead, the zombies act on sound and smell. So to escape a near inescapable situation, they cover themselves in zombie guts and shuffle around to mimic them, and this works. However, the suspense comes from what happens when they make a sound that alerts them. What happens to these characters we've come to know and like now that they're in the middle of a zombie horde with nowhere to go? That's where the tension of the story is made. Simon Wells didn't do a very good job of developing this despite saying otherwise. Imagine if the Fury acted on sound and smell and were generally invincible. However, their main weakness was something like silver, an item only the nobility would have. Then Sir Darius could have found like a sword or armor or weapons that are made of silver in the castle, since it's, a castle full of like jewels and gold and stuff. Then you could have had stages of Sir Darius's defense of the castle as he lures them away with sound, hiding traps with Fury blood, and armoring himself with silver weapons which kill Fury easily. Then, as a last-ditch effort, use the egg as a means to get the dragon to kill the Fury with its breath. But that would require planning, clever writing, character development, and structure. Storytelling tools no one bothered to consider using when developing this movie, because they were too invested with putting in whatever stupid fantasy elements they could think of before considering how any of these pieces fit in the grand scheme of things. After the battle, Sir Darius regroups with the Katori, Sir Swole, and the Princess, where the film ends on sequel bait so strong the 2006 Golden Compass movie would give its sideways looks.
It's becoming clear that the dark forces ravaging our land are just the beginning. We must rally the troops and protect the people. There's a war coming.
The final shot of the movie opens to the necromancer's lair, which is somewhere, I guess, where it is revealed the prince is hatching his own. Oh my god, what the heck, what, oh my god, what is that? Oh wow, oh no. And that's Knights of the Damned. The fights are boring and messy, the characters are bad and poorly written, and while there's a handful of good shots and interesting ideas, none of them are executed with any sort of tact. You can tell Simon Wells and his crew wanted this movie to be a huge feature film release by having a premiere, getting FX people who worked on actual decent movies, which how they screwed that up I have no idea, and touting around the big names they've gotten to contribute as if these things have any sort of bearing on the quality of the story or narrative. Ross O'Hennessy, who is one of the only decent actors in this movie, having been in actual good media, mentions this.
It's a mixture of kind of horror meets fantasy, and there's not many genres that fall within that, so I think it'll appeal to a lot of crowds. If people like horror, they'll like this. If people like fantasy, they'll like this. It's got dragons, there's mermaids, there's zombies, there's swords, there's sexy women, hunky men. It's a perfect film for everyone.
I really hate that mentality, because a good movie is like a well-made dish. It's got a good balance of flavors, none overpowering the other, with each spice, aromatic, and ingredient contributing to the overall quality. Just because you put lemons and jelly beans, potatoes, apples, steak, turkey, vinegar, and a little of everything else you randomly selected at the store into a green hatch chili tortilla doesn't make it a good burrito. Outside of being a mess, the whole film is riddled with editing and production mistakes, many of which were probably done to cut corners since they had a limited time to shoot shots at locations. If they wanted this to be a swashbuckling romance, they should have just stuck to doing that. But they're so confused on which one to go with, I just really don't understand why they didn't just pick one and go with it. I think either idea, zombies or dragons, would have worked, but in the end, a few things would still need to happen. One, the villain needs to be more involved with the story. The princess needs to have a hand in the narrative rather than being the hacky sack of the prince the entire movie. She is a character in this movie, and at the very least, she should be treated like one. Another point is that the dragon or zombies need to influence the knights in some way. If it's zombies, think back to Thomas's bite. Establish him as someone they need, like the one who does all the planning, or maybe he has a special relationship with one of the knights. Then have his curse be the motivating factor for them to want to find a cure or stop the source of the evil before it's too late. This not only gives the knights a time crunch, which could invite suspense into the movie, but also act as a handicap for the heroes as the story goes on. Say, for example, that there's a moment when Thomas can't walk when they need to escape an area. That'd make these action scenes a lot more interesting since they have more to worry about than just zombies and hacking and slashing at every little thing that comes their way. If you wanted to focus more on the dragon, you could have had the prince use the dragon as a tool to wreak havoc on his father's land by using its eggs to control it. Meanwhile, the princess is trying to sneak information out to the knights who are trying to stop the prince before he, builds an army of, dragons or something. I know his plan's pretty bad to begin with. That's a whole other conversation on his own. Restructuring that would be that'd be a task. And better yet, the prince could have the corrupt guards and goons from the castle sent out to fight them. There you could have some interesting moments since the knights knew a few of the guards, either in passing or whatever, while having good old swashbuckling fights like Mr. Holmes wanted. There are 1,000,001 different ways to reutilize the pieces you've placed in the story to make it work better. But then again, that goes back to structure, figuring out the arcs, and understanding what the core focus of your story is even on to begin with. But I digress. On the back of the DVD, there's no mention of the Fury. It's all about slaying the dragon. Dragons are the primary enemy advertised on the front and back. And heck, on the back of the DVD, it says on a quest to slay the dragon. But half the time, they're running around fighting zombies. Just pick one. I don't care. Just do one. That's Knights of the Damned. If you enjoyed this review, please be sure to leave a like, or if you'd like to see more content of this nature, feel free to subscribe. I also post videos on my second channel, Wild Times Media, linked down below, where I'm currently part of a Dungeons & Dragons podcast called Dungeons & Dread. If you'd like to stay up to date on the state of videos, the podcast, or future projects, feel free to follow me at RealWild on Twitter. I rate Knights of the Damned 2 out of 10.